All right, audio still good, light still good. All right, so to everybody that's popping in, thank you, welcome. Sorry for the squeaky chair. I am Ant Pruitt, Ant Pruitt Media, antpruitt.com, Twitterverse, and Instagram, and LinkedIn, and Google Plus, and all that stuff. Ant Pruitt is who I be. Thank you for popping in. I'm doing another live photo edit here on a wonderful party time Friday night. Some people like to go up and hit the bars and things like that. I in particular enjoy spending my Fridays either just sitting under the shade tree or watching some mindless television or creating content. So here you have it. I'm going to work on some photography stuff. And have a beer while I'm at it. But again, welcome. Tonight's live stream, I want to discuss long exposure photography. I wish I had my music. You know what? Hold on. I need music. I'm not going to put the music on the computer because it will really ruin the audio, but I like having music playing in the background while I edit. So let me set that up. 1 second, please.
Device is ready. Bluetooth mode.
Okay. Got that. Of course, it's way too loud. All right. All right, so now I got some ambient audio going because I actually like white noise. Hey, it's Clay in the house. How's it going? Looks like I got 2 regulars for these things now. That's what's up. Thank y'all. Thank you for the support. Okay, so back to the subject at hand, long exposure photography. For those of you that don't know what long exposure photography is basically when you have your camera, whether it's your smartphone or DSLR or mirrorless or film, whatever. You know when you click the button on it and it makes that click click sound, okay? What's happening is the shutter on your camera is opening up and closing, okay? And you can change how fast that shutter opens and closes. You know, so if you want to shoot action sports or something like that, where you got people like running down the football field or whatever, you want that shutter speed to be really, really fast. That way there is no blur and you get a nice crispy image. So it'll be click like that and like at 1/500th of a second, you know, just really, really fast. Okay. The drawback of that is when it's really, really fast, your camera is not getting enough light onto the sensor. So your images could end up being really, really dark if you don't have the proper lighting for your shot. Okay. So now if you want to get more light onto your camera, you want to leave that shutter open a little bit longer. So going faster than 1/500th of a second, you can go to like 1/100th of a second, which is still pretty fast, but it's a lot faster than 500. Or you can take it down to 1/4 of a second, you know, half a second, 1/4 of a second. Or you can take it down to 10 seconds. Yeah, that means you click that button and your shutter pops open and it stays open for 10 whole seconds, just allowing a ton of light to come in and hit that image sensor. And then after 10 seconds, it closes. Okay. So if you were to do a long exposure like that on a bright sunny day, say if you were on a bright sunny day out and about just doing some street photography, and you set your shutter speed to something like 1/4 of a second. Now, 1/4 of a second is like that, but from a camera standpoint, that is pretty slow, and you're doing that on a bright sunny day or whatever, your image is just going to come out super duper bright. So you don't want to do long exposures when there's a whole bunch of light out there. Okay, the purpose of those long exposures is to allow you to get more light when you don't have a lot of light in your ambient settings. Okay, but you can get creative and use long exposure to your advantage to make some really cool images. I got a couple examples that I wanted to share, so I'm hoping I can figure out how to do this properly. So I'm going to switch to this right here, and then I'm going to open up this folder. All right, so with long exposure shots, my first example, I talked about having a nice quick shutter speed. For example, you have the river here with this nice little waterfall on it. The faster my shutter is, the more I get to see the details of the water. You know, if I were to zoom in, you know, you can see just how crisp and clear that water is because that shutter speed was really fast. Now, conversely, I was at the same spot on this lake, but I put a neutral density filter on the front of my camera, which made my lens really, really dark. Okay, so when I looked through it, it looked like I was shooting in the dark, which meant I needed to change my shutter speed to bring in more light. By doing that, I was able to get a long exposure shot, and that same image produced this type of, well, that same scene produced this type of image here. Because I slowed that shutter down, I was able to get this blur effect to happen from that water. So let me see if I can show you two different ones. There we go. So you can see this is pretty much the same thing. I had it set up on, I want to say a GorillaPod. I can't remember. May have been a GorillaPod because it was pretty wet out there and you have to be careful. But this is the fast shutter and this is the slow shutter. Big difference. All right, so that's as far as handling motion blur. But again, it's all about getting the amount of light that you need for your image. Now right here, this is an office building. And I shot this late one evening, and there's not a lot of light out there. But having it set to a long shutter, I was able to pull in more light, more ambient light from, you know, going on downtown, as well as absorb the light that's being shown through those offices. Now, had I just shot that at a, say something like 1/50th of a second, this image would be totally black. It's just not going to happen because not enough light gets to you. This is another example, being in an alley downtown Charlotte. You know, they try to light these alleys up as best they can, but all you got are these little decorative lights and a couple little lamps here by the different doors. That's not enough light for a camera. It's barely enough light for people to see. So change your shutter speed to get in more light and you get this nice warm glowing image. Last example, leaving that shutter open very long like that, you get more blur. And I like to play around with the shutter speed looking at cars go down the street. You know, that shutter was open probably 10 seconds right here. So within that 10 seconds, a car was coming around this way. That's why you have the light streaks. And another car was going back this way down the street, back down to the highway. So that's more light streaks because of the long shutter. Okay. And you can get creative with that. I have this image here that was pretty much a mistake. I think I was at the airport trying to get some long exposures and I hit the shutter and something just told me to move but it was just a weird moment. I'm like, duh, why am I moving right now? But I ended up picking up the camera while that shutter was still open, and then I sat it down, and when the shutter finally closed, this is the image that picked up because I moved the camera around. So you can still get light streaks whether your subject is moving or whether the camera is moving if your shutter is open and you're just playing around with the long exposure. So, but that's what we're going to look at tonight. And we're going to just do I shot some images last night and the day before, and this is my first time looking at them on the computer. So you're going to get the joy of watching me go through my process of figuring out what's a keeper and what's not a keeper, and just the edit flow on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire up Lightroom because that's where I always like to start. And if I need to go into Photoshop, I will, but Lightroom is my go-to. So let's go ahead and fire that up. That's right, those sexy light trails. Yeah, sometimes it works out quite nicely, my man. And it's all in how you plan your composition too. You know, the shot that I showed you from the city, you know, I knew that spot and I knew that time of day it was going to be a lot of traffic there. So let's see what we got here. All right, so we got almost 50 photographs here. Yikes. That's not as many as I thought. I am getting slack. Oh, that's not a keeper. Red. What I like to do in Lightroom is, because this is a nice image organizer, I'll mark them by color. And if they're red in color, I go ahead and have it set up in my brain to delete these things later because I don't need them. Then they're not going to just sit on my computer and take up space. Red. That's a maybe. Yellow is a maybe. And green is when I'm ready to export it for saving. That's a keeper. That one's fuzzy. That's a keeper. I like that. Okay, so we'll keep it. This is okay. Now, another thing that I must mention, I highly advise using a tripod when you do long exposure. I can't talk. I highly advise using a tripod when you're going to do long exposure photography, because what's going to happen is you get images like that last one I showed you where the lights was all over the place. Also, make sure you get yourself some type of wireless trigger, or you don't even necessarily have to do wireless, but just something that allows you to hit the shutter remotely. Like I have this one here. This is a little El Cheapo, but it works. But this right here, it plugs into the side of my camera, and it has this little receiver on top, and I mount that on the top of the receiver, and then when I'm ready to snap the shot, I just hit this button. Doing that means I'm not going to move the camera just by doing a press on it, okay? Because I don't care how steady you think you are, but the second you move your finger, that camera is going to move just a tiny little bit, and it's going to end up causing some blur. Also, wind will cause blur too, so you need to make sure your tripod is nice and sturdy. If it's a little bit on the flimsy side, get yourself some sandbags or something like that to weigh it down to keep it from moving. Because if you look at some of these images here, they were blurry because it was a little bit of wind last night, and I didn't prepare. I didn't tighten up the tripod. But yeah, definitely get yourself some type of triggering system. I've been using something that was sent to me from the folks at Alpine Labs called the Spark. It allows you to use your it has a little remote with it. You know what, actually let me just grab it. Alright, so here this one is. This thing, you know, it can plug into your camera, and then you just hold this little remote like that. And it's got a button. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little flush button right there. You can press that to fire the shutter. Or once it's plugged into your camera, you can also connect it to your phone via Bluetooth. So what I was doing some of the time is I just used the app and just hit the shutter on the phone, just allowing me to sort of step away and just watch and look out for the composition and snap the shot. Because this, you know, again, you got to be still when you're doing long exposures. Anyway, back to these images. Yeah, and that's a good idea too. The 2-second delay, I've done that too, because I've gone out on a long exposure mission and end up not having a battery for the trigger or something like that. But had that 2-second delay on it, that really does help, because it allows it to sit still. You know, you hit your shutter, you let go, and within 2 seconds, you like to think my camera's going to be perfectly still if it's on this tripod. So, yep, that's definitely a trick to use. All right, back to these images. Not feeling these right now. Just sort of blah. Oh, I like that one okay, but I need to mark these red first. Hold on, let me go back. Let's see, mark those red because I'm gonna delete those. Nope, that one too. Keeper. I'm going to try to keep all of the ones from the art, and I'll look at those a little closer. I like this one okay, but this light, I don't know, it's a little overpowering. I think I shot all of these at f/22, hoping that I would be able to minimize stuff like that. And that's another thing. If you didn't realize, you know, like look at these lights in the background, and you notice they look like little asterisks or little stars. That's because you're shooting at a lower f-stop, and I probably shouldn't say lower, but it's a higher f number. So in this case, I'm shooting at aperture f/22, and what that does is it closes the aperture on your lens to let less light in, even though you're keeping the shutter open a long time. Right in front of that shutter, the aperture is closing down like that, okay? And if you ever look inside your lens, well, I don't have one here, but if you look at your lens, you can see the aperture blades in there, okay? And as those blades close down tighter, you get these little fans or little fins showing up there, and that light just slowly or just gradually peeks through and shows up like little stars in your image. Most of the time you can make that happen for the sun, you can make it happen for just about any light source. Just depends on your focal point and your you know, how far you are from it and everything. But that's just something you can keep in mind. All right, so moving on, I'll keep these. Man, I just wish this thing wasn't so powerful. I'm sure I can fix that in Photoshop, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to leave this be. We'll move on to some of these other ones. All right, so now we're getting more into some light trails. That's a nice light trail, but it's a pretty boring shot. It's so dark right there. Looking at this, I shot this at a 5-second exposure, f/22. Next. Ooh, now I like that red, but it's still a little, I don't know, it's just a little blah to me. It's just too dark. And this looks like part of the car going by, so I don't like that either. Red. That looks better. That's a keeper. I still see a little bit of the car going by right there. Man, I hate that these are so dark. I like this a little better. I can see the street a little more. Ooh. Now we're getting there. And you see this one has the street sign there. So Clay says, I don't delete anything ever. I'm a digital hoarder. And Clay, you know what? I was the same way. I still have a ton of stuff and backup. But man, storage is getting so freaking expensive for me when you start talking terabytes and terabytes. It's getting expensive. So I have to look at things and decide, you know what? If I'm not ever going to use it, it's got to go. I like this image. I like that this image has the street sign in it. I can work with that. That looks very similar. This one has a few more headlights in it. I don't like that. It's okay to break it up, but I just don't like how that looks. Okay, this one's alright. I think this is clever. You got the headlights here with the nice little stars. And the other stars here. But I don't like that car in the background. But this is still doable, so we'll keep that one. No. No. Man, I missed. Ooh, I like that. Okay, we'll keep that one. No. 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 Is this what it's like? What it's like when you go through your photos? I'll try that one too. Okay, now this one, this scene, I use my GorillaPod, and I just sat the camera right in the middle of the road. Well, I shouldn't say sat. I think the proper term is set. But I set it right in the middle of the street here, just trying to get something, make something out of nothing. And right now, I'm not feeling that because this horizon is crooked, so that's a no. That's a no. I like the angle. I really enjoy shooting low angle shots. That's one reason why I like the flip out screens on cameras that have them. And that's another reason why I like the GorillaPod or the Manfrotto mini tripods. So you can get these low angle shots. And when you're over 6 feet tall and, you know, bending down ain't always that fun trying to get the low angle shots. I like this one. My horizon's crooked, but I like them. I like the breakup of with the red and the green back there. Clarity could be a little better, but I like that. So that's a keeper. That's a keeper too. So it looks like I gotta fix the horizon on these. Oh, that's really good. That one's really good. I like that. See, on the previous shots, the breakup, you know, it was sort of blending in with the red and green. But that is a clear delineation. This time I was using my 24-105 USM lens. And I think I shot these at a pretty wide, you know, this is at 28 millimeters. 28 millimeters. And these are 10-second exposures. At least that's what Lightroom says. I trust it. Because I can't remember. So we'll keep that one. No. No. Yeah, you see this one is similar to that other one where the green is sort of blended in. And there. Alright, so now we've gone through those 50 shots. And I'll go back through and sort these out and do one more breakdown. 3.5 aperture on that lens. Okay. 18 to 35. You know, I used to have a kit lens, 18 to 55. And dude, I love that lens. I loved it. It's a kit lens, but man, I was able to get nice stuff out of that lens. And sadly, I broke it about a year ago. I was out tailgating and vlogging at the tailgate and sat the thing on the car, and it fell off the car, and that was all she wrote. Hurt my heart. It wasn't a fast lens, but I liked it for landscape. I liked it for vlogging. Didn't care for it for portraiture, but again, I really enjoyed it for landscape and some of my wide street photography. I thought it worked really well for that. Yeah, Sigma does a nice job with their gear. They do. I've considered Sigma. Okay, so now we got this down to our last little groups of approvals. I think we can go ahead and start working on one. I really like this one for some reason. I think it needs a little work, but I like the idea. I like the idea of this shot. I like the whole sweeping motion with the tail lights. Apparently this was a big truck or big van or something where these tail lights were sitting up high like that. But I like the angle. I like the angle that's coming from these tail lights right here. Sorry about that. I didn't have the camera switched. My bad. Let me move this over here so I can see you guys a little better in the chat. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so first things first. Clap my hands, get ready. Let's start processing this thing, shall we? I'll go down, remove my chromatic aberration, set up my camera profile. My lens never shows up in here, so I always use either the L or the STM. So I'll go with that. And it tends to work out fairly okay for me. All right, dehaze. Very first step. Shouldn't have a lot of haze out here on a night shot, but it will try to give you any more extra contrast that you can pull out of it. I dig that. Okay. I've been trying to play around with some of these Adobe profiles, and some of them are actually pretty good. You know, this is the monochrome. That looks pretty nice. Neutral. Now see, going to neutral brought up a whole new element. You see the background shows up when I go to neutral. See, that's what I was talking about on those other shots. The other shots were just a little too dark. They didn't have enough depth to them, I guess. But these look all right. Standard used to be the way to go. Right there. But these profiles, they are freaking slick. They did a really nice job with that. And then some of the modern profiles. Oh, look at that. Dude. I really like that modern #1 because of the black level. I mean, the black levels, look at the center of that image, man. Talk about contrast. Now see, this looks a little hazy, more neutral. Don't want that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with this modern to start with. We'll just use that one for now. And if I don't like it, I can always just go back to the neutral. All right, let's do it. Oh, it does? That's nice. That's good to hear. Adobe's trying to keep up. Very nice. Okay, this thing doesn't really need a lot of contrast, because if I did do that, it's going to really take it down even darker. Okay, and I like having a dark image with this red, but not that dark. I need to be able to get some of the shadow data back. Bring the exposure way up just for the heck of it to see how bad it really looks overexposed. And then bring it back to a nice happy medium. Okay, I think I'll go just slightly underexposed, just slightly. Okay, and then the blacks, raise that up so I can get some of the street detail back by raising the blacks and raising the shadow. But I got to be careful, because if I raise it up too much, I'm starting to see some of this building in the background. That is a church, I believe, and I really don't want it there. So I have to find a happy medium. So right about there on the black level. Yeah, that's about as good as that's going to get from the sliders. I can do some manual dodging and burning if I need to. Sorry, I needed another beer. Do you guys drink beer or have refreshments while you're in your editing process? Some people just have their own little mode of operation. For me, it's music and a nice cold beverage or a smoky whiskey. I don't have to mess with the saturation and vibrance too much, because these colors look great. They look great. And I believe it's because of that LUT that I applied to start. Histogram looks a little sad, but it's okay. We're going to work with it. The histogram is just a guide, okay? Some people will look at the histogram and just freak out and be like, oh my God, it's pushed all the way over here to the left, you know? So that means my image is underexposed. Oh no, I need to fix that. So I need to go ahead and just raise up the exposure. But when you do that, so now it's all the way to the right. Oh my God, it's overexposed. What am I going to do? No, so let me take it back to where it's more in the middle. Okay, so now the histogram says I'm properly exposed, quote unquote. Okay, so your image is properly exposed now, but look at this. This looks like crap. So don't totally rely on your histogram. Use your histogram as a guide. Okay, use it as a guide, use it as a baseline, if you will. But understand that histogram depends upon a bunch of different variables. You know, I'm out there at like 10 p.m. at night. I believe that's what the screen says. Yeah, it's 10:06 p.m. when I shot this. It's dark. So the histogram automatically is going to say, you know what, you're underexposed, regardless of what you do. You know, so just use it as a guide. Don't swear by your histogram, okay? There we go. I've seen a few articles and I've seen some YouTube videos and people talking about the quote unquote perfect histogram, and I'm like, dude, you're telling people the wrong stuff. You're ruining a lot of people's images. Just use it as a baseline. And so in my case, I'm going to underexpose just a touch, okay? Because that's what works for this scene. Just bring those shadows out some more. There. All right, so HSL. I like playing around with HSL because I can get a full breakdown of all of the colors here. You know, if I don't like how this red is looking, if I want to make it a little bit darker, boom, I can make that red darker. If I want to make it brighter and more vibrant, I can make it more vibrant like that. If I hit the yellow and the orange, you'll see that this light back here will be affected. See? Love that feature. My greens. Nope. Okay, so we're good on that. Split toning is something that we could play with near the end. Not going to look at that just yet. Right now, I'm just trying to do a baseline and get this thing looking semi-decent. I think the sharpening is okay. When you're shooting long exposures, you're going to have a little bit of noise in your image. So I zoomed in here, and you can see a little bit of grain and noise right there. It's because it's dark, and I shot the thing. I tried to shoot it at a low ISO to minimize the noise as best as I can, and keep it on a tripod. This could be a lot worse, but this is okay. So I can just slide this noise reduction a little bit, clean that up. There we go. Looks a little better, but it looks a little fake too, so I'm going to bring it back down. That'll work right about there. Alright, so now as I look at this a little bit more, this red is still just it's starting to bug me a little bit. It's a little too much, a little too overpowering. And I can change it in this luminance here, or I can actually just desaturate it some. Let me try that first. So we'll take it back to right about where it was, and then I'll desaturate it just a touch. Now desaturating it makes it look a little more pink because it's taking the color out. So let's take the luminance back down. Okay, that works. Music and no wet stuff near my rig. Yeah, I totally understand when it comes to having food and beverages next to your gear. I do. But I got over it. I clearly got over it. Okay, I think we're about done with our baseline. You can play around with some of your transform features. That doesn't work for me. But the horizontal may give me a different look. You know, and of course, if you go too far, you can really screw some stuff up. So just take your time as you go through these. And what I like about this right now is the depth that I get from this image. Unfortunately, it screws up the top portion there, the top third. So you got to find that balance. Okay, so this is, whoops, this is where it was originally. Okay, but I think I want to try to give it a little more depth going up the street there. So let me turn it that way a little more. Yeah, I dig that. What y'all think? I dig that. I just got to crop this white edge off though. But I like the whole idea of going further down the street like that, giving you that additional lead-in line. So we'll crop it down like that. There we go. Well, I might want to take that crop back because it looks a little tilted now, so I got to fix the tilt. Okay, yeah, that looks a little bit better. The tilt was off. You see, excuse me, I almost have the sign lined up, but that's okay. Signs are never straight when they're hanging, but your horizon line has to be straight. That annoys the crap out of me when I see images out there that are just awesome, and then the horizon line is crooked. Just a pet peeve of mine. Cool. Thank you, Clay. Oh, and if you guys catching this on the rerun, my man in the chat, CW Daily, Clay, he has this podcast called Cybercast. There's no E in Cybercast. Be sure to check him out. It's a pretty interesting podcast. I've been listening to the last couple episodes, and it's quite fascinating. Been doing nice work there, sir. Okay, back to the image. Yeah, we're done with the transform. There's no need for the vignette. I mean, it's already dark. I don't need to screw with that. The color profile, I'll do that lastly. All right. So baseline of this image is done. Okay. Baseline of that image is done. I've gone through and I've knocked out noise and the color stuff that I didn't particularly like and framed it the way I want it. That's all of the baseline and the fundamental work that I like to do with my particular editing style. Then I like to go more so into the details, whether I'm going in and trying to sharpen or boost the clarity of a particular focal point or something, or I'm pushing it into Photoshop, removing things that don't need to be there. Like sometimes there's a sign that I didn't want there, or I take it out, little objects like that. So now is when we start to get a little nitpicky and really trying to spruce up this image. So let's take a look-see. Okay. First thing that sticks out in my head is this ghosting part here. I don't like seeing the cars there. The only way I can fix that is in Photoshop. So I already know I'm going to be going into Photoshop. I don't like how overpowering this headlamp is. But I think I could do a little burn on it with an adjustment brush and a Wacom tablet. So we're going to pull out the Wacom tablet right here. And we're going to do a burn adjustment brush. And what that's going to do is decrease the exposure wherever I brush. So I'm going to put a little plotter right there just so I know where I am. And I'm going to cut that down and give it that little astro look as best I can by hand. Like that. Kyle Knotts, what's going on, man? Thank you. And Clay, that's hilarious. You couldn't afford the E. No, you're just really, really hip. That's what that is. Now, are you guys able to see the difference here when I go in and I'm trying to brush out those overexposed areas of this headlamp? If I hit O on my keyboard, you'll see where I've been brushing because it'll be red. Okay. And what I'm trying to do is just really make this headlight stand out like a little star. Because right now it's just a little overpowering and I think it's a little distracting. I probably could just flat out remove the thing. Okay. Yeah, let's take that exposure down a little more. See, we're getting there. Just gotta find the happy medium. Brush that away, brush that away. You know, some people will look at this and be like, "Ooh, this is cheating. You can't do that to your images. You can't do that to your photographs, and you're just ruining the goal of photography." Kyle, we are in the same drone community. Oh, wait a minute. Y'all use Google Plus? I thought I was the only person that used Google Plus. What the heck? I really, really, really like Google Plus. Unfortunately, Google Plus has been getting on my nerves recently with its algorithm. Every time I go in there, my feed is not refreshed. I see stuff from 7, 8 hours ago from people. Ooh, that looks really bad now that I look at it. I need to fix that. I don't like this now that I've gone through with it. Let me see again. Alright, so I'm going to have to erase some of the brush strokes that I added just to bring it back. So I went a little overboard. And that happens. So let's bring some of it back. Like that. And I'll tell you guys right now, I know you all are out there doing the best you can and out there trying to get some nice shots for your clients and whatnot. And if you're like me, there were times where you struggled with what you charge your clients for your images, and a lot of times you undercharged. This right here, this live stream right here is why you don't undercharge, okay? Because there's so much time, so much effort and detail that goes into editing images. It's not just snapping and changing hue, saturation, and exposure. There's more to it on about 95% of the instances. Okay? So don't be ashamed to charge what you charge. You know, if you feel it's worth it, just show it. And people will pay it. If they respect your game, you know, they'll be like, you know what, you are really good. And if they don't want to pay it, there's other clients out there that will. But I mean, I'm sitting here brushing a freaking street light. You know, this takes time, folks. Takes time. Hey, take care, Kanan. Thanks for hopping in, man. There we go. All right. Oh, I dragged over it too much. Crap. Every now and then that happens. I get caught up in some lag. There. Okay. Now it's looking a little better, but I think I'm going to have to either just flat out remove that or work on it in Photoshop. But in the meantime, I will brush away the ghosting down here as best I can. And this is just cars that were going by, and this top light hit the angles of those cars just right so you could see little silhouettes, if you will, of the cars. So we're going to brush that away because it's a little distracting in my opinion. Okay, so that works, but I'm going to do one more burn, do one more brush, and I'm going to take it down even lower for these cars. Put a plotter there. There we go. See, they're disappearing now. That'll work right there, Pruitt. Clean up this light trail. Did you see what I did with that light trail right there? Let me zoom in. You'll probably see it a little better if I zoom in. You know, just that little extra ambient light right there. Just get rid of it. You don't need it. It'll make that streak look a lot better. It's all about catching details. Now, sometimes you don't have to pay attention to details. It just depends on the extent, okay? Because you gotta look at it far as some people are looking at the image that you present for the very first time, so they have no idea what the original image looked like. For example, if you shoot something in street photography or whatever, like somebody's just walking their child down the street, but for whatever reason they decided to walk past a garbage pail, and you just thought, oh, that looks really bad with that stupid garbage pail right there. So you go in and you use Photoshop or whatever photo manipulation program that you use, and you remove that garbage pail. Some people will freak out about that, saying, oh my God, you photoshopped it, the horror, you know, and they start coming out with all of the pitchforks and stuff. But if they didn't know that, they wouldn't even care. They just say, oh man, that's a nice image, you know. So be mindful of your details that you dive into. Don't stress out over it. But that one was going to stress me out, so I had to fix it. All right, so let's back out of this a little more. Uh-oh, Lightroom just froze on me for a second. Here we go. I knocked all of my menus out. That's not good, Ant. Got to do better. Pay attention to what you're doing. There. Okay, so I think we are square for that one. I seriously have a hunch. I'm thinking I'm just going to get rid of this light in Photoshop. It's I don't know. We're going to do the same effect to these stoplights here. We're going to do another burn and try to soften these up a little bit, but this time I'm going to change the flow on my brush. Knock it down a little bit, keep the feather high, and I'll zoom in just to get a little more real estate to work with. Or maybe give it a little more flow. Right about there should work. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Not bad. It ain't great, but it ain't horrible either. Get rid of that blue light. Go away, blue light. Don't need you. Don't need this either. Get rid of it. Yep, definitely going to go into Photoshop. All this little lens flare. Lens flare is fine to a certain extent in my world. There. Okay, so as far as Lightroom goes, I think we are done. So now we'll go ahead and hop into Photoshop. Now earlier today, Photoshop crashed on me every time I did this. How long have I been streaming? Hopefully I'm not taking up too much of y'all's time. Ooh, I've been going for almost an hour. I really need to wrap this up. This is taking too long. Ooh. Y'all are some troopers for sticking around and watching this. Watching me edit photos and drink beer. All right. As usual, we're not going to be We're not going to be destructive in Photoshop. We want to be non-destructive, so we're going to make copies. Actually, I don't need this second copy just yet. So first off, that light that's been bothering me, let's just get rid of it. Okay, lasso tool. I'm gonna put a big old circle around that thing like that, and then I'm gonna do edit, fill, and we're gonna let the AI or computational editing do its thing with this content aware option. And let's see how well it does. Sometimes it does a really good job. So we're going to hit OK. Let's see what happens. Look at that. Man. Seriously? I love that. God, I love that. And unfortunately, I got to get rid of this little pole here too. But fortunately, I know that this is a keyboard shortcut, so I can just do Shift F5, Shift F5, and OK, and it's gone. And same thing, like that. Shift F5, go away. It's getting there, so it's struggling a little bit right here, but that's okay. That looks a whole lot better. We'll do the same thing for this region too. God, that's freaking awesome. Let's get rid of those lens flares. See ya. Oh man, Photoshop, you are awesome. I still have a lot to learn about Photoshop. This app has so much stuff in it, man. Good grief. All right, so since it's being stubborn on this part of the light post, I'm going to have to use the patch tool. No biggie. Patch tool is very easy to use. Let's do a little more cleanup right there. Let's get rid of that. Almost. Try one more time, buddy. Okay, so that's going to require a patch tool as well. And I mentioned on my previous live stream, you know, using the Wacom tablet and having a stylus like that, it's so much easier to go in and just draw around selections like that instead of trying to use a mouse. For me, it is anyway. You get a little more precision and a little more control being able to just, all right, I can draw what I need to do that content aware fill on, you know. So if you are curious about a good old Wacom tablet, they have them out there for as little as $100. I think you can get the old version for probably $70. I have an old version and it works just fine right now. Still does. So you have options out there. So back to our image. Okay. Probably can get rid of this little streak too. Let's get rid of that. Like that. Shift F5. Go. Very good. Very good. Very good, grasshopper. All right, so now we're going to do the patch tool. If you know the shortcut, that is J on your keyboard, or you just put your mouse up here and hover around and you go to patch tool like that. But I'm just going to hit J because I'm used to doing it. And you see we have these little bit of splotches of light right there. I want that to be really dark to give some contrast to these traffic lights. So we're going to drag it out there and make it as dark as possible. And when you're using the patch tool, you have these options up here. You can use the normal mode or the content aware mode. When you use the content aware mode, most of the time you get a better blending when you're patching things together, but you don't necessarily always get the final result that you want. Like right here, I wanted this to be really, really black. I don't care about the blending because it's just a black sky anyway, so I went with the normal mode. And now we need to work on this lamp post. So to do that, I'm going to zoom in to get a little more precise. Like that. Patch tool. Nope. 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 See, I need to change the blend mode. Well, not blend mode, but change the usage mode. Wow, that didn't make it any better. That's a shock. So let me put it back to content aware fill, and I'll come back to that. So I'm going to get this side. Okay, that's a little better. Get this. You got to go. Get this area. Good. And we'll try this one more time, but nope, it's not going to work. So since the patch tool didn't work, we're going to use the healing brush. It's still under the J menu, but it's right here instead. So the way this works is you have to press Alt on your keyboard. I think it's Option on a Mac. And then you tap where you want a source to come from. So I want this black area, so I'm tapping there. And then I'm just going to brush right over it like that. So that made it black. I'm going to zoom in a little more because now I want this area here to be red. So I'm going to hold Alt to select red right there. And then I'm going to brush right over it like that. See? Not bad, right? And I'll go back over here because this red is not quite as vivid. So if I was to brush on it right now, it'll look really weird. So let's grab a more faded out red right there and brush it in. See there? That's looking better. So when I zoom out, it looks a little more realistic that way. Personally, I want it to look a little cleaner. So I'm going to patch tool again. And I'm going to do this and see if I can. Nope. Photoshop says, no, Ant, you're not too smart. You shouldn't do it that way. So we'll say heal and brush. I'm going to select this black area like that. And I'm just going to brush it in. Get rid of it. I don't care what Photoshop thinks this time. Get rid of it. So now you don't have all of that red ambient light. Scroll up. I'm going to do the same thing down here. Just brush it away. Brush it away. Like that. Ooh, you got a $50 Wacom tablet? Man, that's what's up. That's a good deal. Because it's just plug it in and go. Nice, man. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to brush away all of the crap that I don't want to see. Like that. And you have to be careful. You hit that Alt key to select your source like that. But you notice as you brush, you get this little cursor trailing your brush. And wherever that thing moves, that's what your source is going to be. See, right now I'm in this greenish gray area, so I'm brushing green gray into the scene. I don't want that. And that works fairly well in some situations, but when you get caught up in that and you don't want that particular color to come through on the brush, just hit Alt again to change your source and keep that little trailing cursor off your butt. Like that. See, that time it almost brushed in red. Alright, so now I need to fix this light streak here. Get the red back. Take my brush down a little bit in size. Whoops, that looks like crap. Oh gosh. Alt. And we will lightly brush that in like that. It's a little too black there. That's better. That's better. Yeah, you just have to be careful. Watch that little trailing cursor, because it will put in stuff you didn't ask for. There we go. So now let's zoom out, take a look. I like it. I like that. I think this area here could use a little more work because of that green hue. So I'm just going to get rid of it. There. Let's get rid of all that green hue. There we go. Looks like light pollution, you know? You guys know what light pollution is? Whoops, got too close. There we go. All right. I think that looks a lot better, guys. And gals, if any ladies are watching, sorry. Dude, that looks bad. Don't do that. Undo. Okay. I'm going to leave that be. Let's brush off a little bit of this extra pollution here on the tail. A little bit there. Brush that away like that. Sweet. Cool. Glad y'all dig it. I've been doing this one photo for an hour. An hour. Okay. Next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to bring out this sign right there. I like the simplicity of South Street. You know, it's because that's one of those streets that regardless of whatever town or city you go to, you'll probably come across a South Street or a South Avenue. It's almost as synonymous as like a Martin Luther King Boulevard. You know, you always see that. You see Main Street, you see Martin Luther King, and you see something like South or West, you know. So I want to see if I can bring that out a little bit more. How do I want to do that though? So let's go with our selection tool here. We'll select this thing like that. And then we'll say image, adjustments. We'll try brightness just to bring it up a little bit. I think that stands out a little bit better. Yeah, I think that stands out a little bit better that way. Now granted, it does look weird because my selection wasn't quite right over here on the edge. You can see where I selected. I didn't get everything. I didn't get the whole sign, so I need to fix that. So we'll go back and hit J to get back to our healing brush. And I'm going to do Alt for that green spot right there. That's going to be our color. And I'm just going to paint it in. Just paint it in. Nope, that looks like crap. So I'm going to undo. Oh, well, wait a minute. I need to shrink my selection. That's what it is. That's what it is. You see that? It's a good thing you can zoom in on these things. So let's shrink the selection down. Like that. And then I'm going to put a feather on it too. That way it's not as harsh of an edge on it. So let's say maybe 10 pixels. All right. And now we will adjust the brightness to make it stand out a little more. Yeah, that looks much better. Okay, so we'll zoom out. Take that marquee off. Yeah, that looks better, right? I dig it. I dig it. My brush is too big, sorry. Paint that away a little bit. Billy Currington's playing on my radio. I like him. He talks about drinking beer and the peacefulness of it all. There we go. Okay, folks, I think that looks pretty daggone good for now. But we're still not done. I have another idea that I'd like to goof around with, and that's let's just add a little more color to it. So I'm going to add a new layer over here, and I'm going to hit my eyedropper by pressing I, and I'm going to change this layer mode to color like that, the blend mode for the layer. And with my eyedropper, I'm going to select this shade of red right there. And then I'm going to hit G on my keyboard for gradient. And you'll see up in the upper left corner, I now have this gradient based on that red. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of contrast and drag a gradient across the screen like that. And I don't like that. So I'm going to undo, and I will take a different color instead of that red. Let's try this tint right here. Something semi-light. Hit G, and we'll drag that gradient across. Yeah, see, now that looks better. So this is without that gradient, and this is with the gradient. I like that. Gives it another little layer of detail. And I'm gonna do one more like that. And I'll change it to, let's say, soft light on the blend mode. And I'll take this yellow, if my cursor wants to work. There we go. Take this yellowish color, something like that. Do one more. Whoa, what happened? Something weird just happened to that layer, so let's just get rid of that. Not sure what happened there. Let's try this again. So we'll do a new layer, and I got my yellow color selected. I'm gonna do a gradient, and this time I'm gonna come from the other side. All right, now that's in normal mode, and I don't really have a problem with that because all I gotta do is take this opacity down a little bit, play with it. No, it still doesn't work for me. Take the fill down. Nope, still doesn't work for me. Definitely need to change the blend mode. So let's try soft light. Nah. And that's the thing, you gotta do a little bit of trial and error. Yeah, see, all of those look like crap. But that works, changing it to color by grabbing this little yellowish gold color right here for that gradient. It really brought out this the streaks a little more, just a little more. So I dig that, folks. And I think we are done with this shot. This ain't the best long exposure that I've ever done, but I think this was a fun shot to work with just for tonight's purposes. So I'm going to hit save right there, and it's going to take us back to Lightroom. And I could pretty much just export this as is, but I always want to take a look at this color profile down here. Give me a little bit of orange and teal. See what happens there. And not too much happened there. Yep, that didn't affect it too much. It's all good. I dig it. So I will just export this, and I'll just go ahead and get this ready to post over on Instagram. I have some presets already. That Insta preset, boom, like that. And there it goes. I can pull it from the cloud and post it on Instagram and say, hey, I did this in a live stream. Why weren't you here watching? All right, folks, that is it for this live stream tonight. This was a lot of fun. I took up a lot of your time. I see it says I've been streaming for 1 hour and 22 minutes, but I think I delayed that by at least 10 minutes because I was still trying to set up the audio and get my beer ready and all of that. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at ant_Pruitt, or reach out to me on Instagram at @Pruitt. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions for some tutorials that you'd like to see, you can also just comment on this live stream and just let me know, and I'll see what I can do for you. Be sure to hit the share button and pass this video on, as well as any of the other videos over on my YouTube channel that you think some other photography fans may enjoy. I really, really, really appreciate all of the support. This has been a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed it, and I didn't waste your Friday night. So I'm gonna check this chat one more time to see if you got any questions before we go. There's a little bit of a delay. Loved it. Loved it. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Knotts. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. No doubt, Clay. It's definitely cool. Hoping to see more of Clay's work on social media. That's an inside joke, folks. You got to go check out his podcast and know what I'm talking about. All right. right, sweet. So no more questions. All right, so again, thank you folks for watching. Be sure to hit the share button and hit the like button, and feel free to leave me any comments that you like. If you don't like this video, hit that dislike button, but don't do that if you're not willing to tell me why you hit that dislike button. Gotcha. All right, y'all take it easy. We're going to shut this stream down. Have yourself a good weekend, and I look forward to chatting with you guys over on social media. Take care.